Sweet. All right. Well, it looks like we are on. This is let me turn this light off. It's a little too bright. That's a little too wild here. Let's see. Just trying to fix this light situation. Um, Oops. Get rid of that. So that's not doing anything. All right, cool. So this is the Night Hunting Podcast, and this is episode number 14. In this episode, we're going to be talking about night hunting pigs and actually what we do with them after the harvest. And my name is Tony Abreu. I am your host. And this is basically a podcast for night hunters and all about night hunting. And it is something I've been doing every week. So hopefully we can grow it and get big. So the first thing that I want to do is whenever you are watching this, whether it's now or whether it is at a different time, put down in the comments below what state you are from and what animals you are hunting. So for me, I am in North Central Florida. I would like to go to Texas sometime and do some pig hunting and maybe coyotes. But right now I'm in North Central Florida and I hunt coyotes, I hunt hogs, and I also hunt deer with the legal deer depredation permits. So in the comments below, what state are you from and what are you hunting? I talked to a guy from, I think it was Indiana last week or the week before, and he hunts beavers. And I mean, we don't even have, I don't even know if we have beavers here. I've never seen one, but that's pretty cool. And I hear beavers are good eating, but anyway. So back to the episode at hand here, we're talking about pig hunting or hog hunting and what to do after the harvest. So I know in Texas, a lot of times, and even Louisiana, I see, people shooting at large groups of pigs, or a large group of pig is actually called a sounder. And basically, see if I can adjust this light a little bit. It's so bright in my face. Anyways, so we really, I'm going to say that, I mean, up until a couple of weeks ago, or no, I can take that back. But we do have situations like that here sometimes in around farm fields. Maybe last year, the year before last, we had a group of 16 in a field and we took out 5 of them. And then a couple of weeks ago, we went to Williston, and which is like probably like maybe 30 minutes from where I'm at. And we took out 7, and there was probably a group of 15 to 20 in the first group, which they winded us and we didn't really get a good shot. They were like surprised us before we were even going to the field. And then once we got into the field, we saw a lone boar. We took him out. And then we ended up with a group of 22 that we took out, like 5, 6, I believe. So finding the sounders, is definitely, there's a lot of meat there. I've been in another field where there was 2 or 3 at a time, but never really more than that. And, what do we do with them after we're done? Well, to be completely honest, in Florida, pigs are they're feral. So, I mean, it's not even like really a big deal here. There's so many of them. Matter of fact, I was driving to work this morning just after daylight and riding on a 60-mile-an-hour road. And I seen where there was some blood in the road or whatever. And I looked down in the ditch and there was a tank of a pig that somebody had hit. And he was fully intact. Like, he wasn't really destroyed at all. So it must have been a small car. And I guarantee it destroyed the car because they're so tough. But anyways, most of the time when we shoot pigs, we definitely it's so late that we don't really mess with them. Like we just dump them. Now I'm not saying that's the way it is every time, because basically there's been times where on that group that we took on the of the 16 and we took out 5, we actually threw those in the back of a truck and dropped them off to a dude in the next town up who wanted the meat, and they cleaned them, which again, it was like 1 o'clock before those pigs got there. So I don't even know. I would hate to be cleaning pigs all night, but these guys love pigs. Um, basically, one time I took a dude out and he shot his first pig, and it was a huge boar hog. And I totally cleaned that pig and put him in a cooler for him. And he took it home. I don't even know how much he cooked of it, but he didn't even know what to do with meat. And the meat totally rotted in his cooler. And I don't even know how much he got of it. He ended up throwing most of it away. But as far as like cleaning a boar hog, when, there's sometimes, I mean, I'm from South Florida originally, and most people don't even eat boar hogs down there, although some do. I will say this: there are times when you can shoot a big boar hog and he will stink so bad that I don't even know if you want to get the meat. Now, this pig that we shot that one time that the dude lost the meat on, or that he didn't know how to do the meat, basically that pig didn't really stink that bad. And actually, a couple weeks before that, we shot 2 more boar hogs. That's a weird thing. Like that field, we've only shot boar hogs in. I mean, I bet you we've shot like 6 boar hogs or 7 boar hogs out of that field. But anyways, we shot 2 one night and called a dude, and he came and got them, and they totally did not stink. I could not believe it. But if I was cleaning a hog that did have like a little bit of stink to them, a boar hog, then I would either drop the guts immediately, because you don't want that. You don't want there's something in the pee that you don't want to get in that meat. And then the longer you leave it in there, the more chance that it could get in there. And it's just nasty. Um, or if you leave the guts in like I generally do on a deer, you just want to be real careful that you are well aware of the line for the piece, so that you don't, end up like bursting that line and getting it all over your meat. So it's a real touchy situation. But 9 times out of 10, we're not cleaning pigs. Now, there are times when, yeah, like right now, I mean, if I shot one right after dark, I would like to, especially if it was like 100, 100 pounds, 120 pounds, that's a perfect size, maybe 130, perfect size, sow. And boar hogs, being that small, aren't that big of a deal. Um, but whenever they get big and territorial, and, they're running a lot of sows, they stink. I can't even describe what they smell like. But anyways, so yeah, it's a time right now where, yeah, I actually would like to get some meat so I could put it on the smoker. And the other night would have been perfect for that, because we ended up shooting 7 that night, and 4 of them were probably about the right size, but it was already like well after 1 a.m. whenever we shot those. So it's like, just can't do it. But that's about, perfect eating size, between, 100, 150 pounds. Smaller pigs, doesn't matter if it's a boar or sow. And then also there was another night where I went to another farmer around the same area, and I took my guns there, and we were in a cow field, and one of the boys shot a pretty nice pig. It was a boar. Actually, it was a bar. So once we ground checked this pig on the ground, we saw how big he was. He had a huge slit cut out of his ear, and he had been caught by dogs and released, and they cut his gonads out. And actually, the boy that shot him went back and got his back straps and his hams. So that wouldn't be so hard to do. As far as shoulder meat goes on a pig, yeah, I just wouldn't really mess with it too much. But I mean, getting the back straps and the hams is pretty easy and pretty quick. So, uh, but yeah, that's pretty much, what we do. I also have, I'm going to switch screens here. Let's see if I can figure out how to share my screen. Oh, wow, I didn't realize that it was sharing like that, but that's okay. There we go. So yeah, also, if you look right here, I use one of these, and I don't really use it for pigs, although I have used it for pigs. But I mainly bought it for the deer because whenever we do deer depredation, we generally are cleaning pigs out in the field if we're not, running up to a farmer's shed and using a tractor or a forklift or a loader or something to jack it up. But sometimes we don't really have that option. So this is easy to use in the field, and I'll just take my trailer off, and I'll just slap this in the reese hitch and then crank it up, and it'll crank up a deer or whatever. Never really had a problem with it cranking, although I have had to replace the actual winch with a better winch, but that's not a big deal. It actually came with two gambrels, a small one and a big one, which works for smaller pigs and also for, big animals as well. And it's not really a bad price. It was like $150 or something like that. So, you know, if I know that I'm going to be cleaning something that night, I'll definitely carry this thing on my trailer and then just unhook the trailer and throw it in the reese. Although I did try to put a reese hitch on my trailer somewhere, I tried to weld it and it was a lot of pressure on it. And I got to just come up with a better design on that. But for right now, I just use it on the truck. So, but that's another way to clean. Also, if you're going to be cleaning animals in the field, you definitely want to have a cooler full of ice, and also a cooler, to throw the meat in. The faster you can cool it down, the better. Um, if you pack too much meat in a cooler without icing it down properly, or if you don't throw ice underneath it and just throw it in there and then throw ice on top of it, there's a good chance that that meat could spoil. And generally, that, like that guy that didn't really know about the meat, generally for me, whenever I put meat in a cooler, I pretty much run the run the meat in the cooler for the whole, basically the whole time, like for a week at least, and sometimes even longer. um Trying to get my screen back here. No, stop share, there we go. So yeah, so basically, you definitely, I run the meat in there. It's kind of like my aging process. I know some people have actually put it in a refrigerator and aged it like that. But for me, I just keep it in a cooler, keep throwing ice on top, make sure the bottom is draining. And then that way the ice and water kind of pulls the blood and kind of ages the meat a little bit. And then whenever at the end of that time, which I believe I have iced meat one time for 17 days, which it just started to get a little green on it. And I took it to a processor that's kind of in the family. And he said it wouldn't be a problem. They just shave a little bit of that stuff off, and then they just, kind of do whatever they did with it. So, but it's kind of like, putting it in the ice is kind of like aging it. And, and then you can just do whatever you want with it, and you really don't have to cut off the discolored meat because it's been super cold the whole time and it does get discolored. But it's not like trying to win a beauty contest or anything, so it still eats good. I did that with deer the other day. I had two deer in a cooler, and iced them, put ice underneath, put ice all in the middle, and then iced them for a week. And then at the end of it, the end of the week on the next Sunday, which was probably 8 days, I started taking the meat out, the hams and stuff, and chopping it up where it would fit in my meat grinder. And at the end of it, I kept the tenderloins and the back straps separate. I ground everything else up, and I made hamburger out of it. So, you know, but what do we do with the pigs afterwards? Like I said, 9 times out of 10, they're just, it's too late. It's late and I don't feel like cleaning them. So we just drag them to a pile. A lot of people drag them to a pile and use them for coyote bait. And then also, you got to be careful where you drag them, especially if you are hunting. Like one thing that I like to do when I'm hunting in any farmer field is ask them where they want the carcasses dumped at, because leaving a carcass in a farm field is not always the best thing. And also I've gotten in trouble putting carcasses places where I shouldn't have. It's just always better to ask up front where they would want the carcasses dumped versus putting them somewhere and then having to move them later. So that's kind of a respect thing that I've learned, and I've messed up a couple times. And just better to ask in the front than in the rear. So, but yeah, so that's pretty much it for the, what do we do with the pigs after the harvest. As far as what's going on with my stuff right now, on last Thursday night, I went to a buddy's house who's having problems sighting one in, a thermal, and I took a shot at 25 yards and it was pretty close to being dead on. Took a shot at 100, pretty close to being dead on. Um, then he started shooting it and it wasn't even close. I'm not sure, what's going on. I believe it's just the way that he shoots. The tripod's definitely given me issues before, being that we use a saddle grip and putting a rifle on. We figured it out. We did figure it out. He might have figured it out. So, being that the rifle that he is using has a plastic style handguard on it, which is not free floating the barrel, he believes that cranking it down onto the barrel could be causing the gun to shoot different. And I totally agree with that. I've definitely had issues with that before as well. So had lots of issues with everything. And, the more that you journey into something, the more you figure out like little issues that you can correct. And free floating a barrel, like my first issue was on a barrel floating, was I was shooting off my golf cart and I shot at a pig that was probably 20 yards in front of my golf cart off of my windshield. And whenever I did, my suppressor and my barrel were resting on the windshield. And when you have a free float barrel and you're pushing down on the barrel and shooting, it's not going to be the same zero because you are now putting pressure down, which is going to cause you to shoot high. And after I totally missed that pig at like 20 yards, and I was flabbergasted. I was like, what the heck just happened? So after a week went by, I started watching the video, and whenever I watched where the bullet hit, it was high. I'm like, what? Why would it be high? And then I realized that I was on the barrel and not on the handguard, which was free floating. So I was not free floating. I was pushing down on the barrel, which caused it to miss. And then once I figured that out, I actually missed a deer that way a couple of years ago with my Browning bar rifle, and the same thing happened. I was totally on the barrel and not on the handguard or on the rifle stock, and it caused me to miss. So you have to be very careful on where you're putting pressure on these guns, or on any gun really, because it could definitely cause you an issue if you're not careful. So he figured that out. But regardless of that, after we got rained on and we were messing around with some night vision and some other stuff, he lives on 43 acres and then he's got like hundreds of acres around him. So we went out into one of his cow fields and started calling. Didn't really hear anything. We actually thought we saw a coyote behind us, and we moved up closer, and with thermals now, we started looking closer at the way that the dog was moving and realized that it was his healer dog. just because she's old and she was limping on one leg, and we figured that out. So that was cool. And then after a little bit more time in that field, we packed up and we went down the road and went to another field that was probably 500 to 800 yards down the road. And we pulled into that field. And when we pulled in on the golf cart now, I turned the lights on the road. And as soon as I got close to the field, I just turned the lights off, and I just slowly whipped into this field, which was pretty high grass. Obviously at night you can't really tell, but we pulled in, and as soon as we pulled in, I stopped and looked, and there were two animals in the back of the field. They were probably 300 yards to the back of the field, 300 plus. And we pulled up a little bit and we got off and we set up our tripods, and I put the call out behind the golf cart and out a little bit, probably about 40 yards away. And I turned it on, and they were starting to move on towards the back of the property. And I turned it all the way up and put a rabbit call on. And as soon as they heard it, they both came bolting in. And the first one got all the way into 43 yards and stopped. And he was like, he didn't have a suppressor. So he's like, you shoot first, or just shoot. I'll just let you shoot. And as soon as he got to 43 yards, which I'm running a 2-power scope, he was running a 3-power scope. And as soon as he got to 43 yards and stopped, I had it right on the chest, and I went click and totally forgot to rack a bullet in my gun, which I didn't really forget to rack a bullet in my gun because I thought it was loaded from the week before whenever we were pig hunting in a watermelon field. But that's kind of funny because after that happened, he shot and went ahead and shot that dog down. And then the second one was running out and running away. I tried to rack another one. It didn't go in right. I don't even think the magazine was all the way in, which this has happened to me before. I can't believe it just happened again. But anyways, it got so far out, and finally I was just like, I'm not going to shoot. And he dropped that dog, and it was pretty cool. But at the same time, another valuable lesson to remember that, you should always rack, like check your rack, like before, like right when you get out of the truck, right whenever you're at the point where you're ready to shoot, you need to be ready to shoot. So the funny thing is that when we were last week with the pig situation, I rode around that whole time. We had a couple of opportunities to shoot. I never even shot because I thought I was racked from the week before. So that's kind of funny. I never even shot, but that night, my buddy actually shot a pig in the shoulder. And I don't recommend shooting pigs in the shoulder unless you want them to run off. They're probably going to live. Pigs have, especially big boar hogs, they have such like armor plate on that shoulder. And if you want to get a picture with a hog, or you want to clean a hog or whatever, my recommendation is to shoot him in the neck or shoot him in the head. So, but that's kind of funny. After that, I finally did get one racked, and I tried to keep calling that dog to see if it would come, but it got out of Dodge. And we went and got a couple pictures and ended up going back to the house, and that was it. So, but he was able to shoot that dog at 40 yards with no problem. I'm not even sure where he really hit it at, but I know he did hit it, and it was, the gun was on enough to do that. But definitely, he's going to have to figure out what's going on with that forearm, that handguard. I recommend, it's just one of those plastic Magpul ones or whatever, but pretty much all the rifles that I have, I run free float, slim ultralight rails, because I want to be as light as possible, and I just don't want to deal with the big ones. Although I do have a big fat one for a 300 blackout where I could tuck my suppressor. But the more I hunt, the more I just want to be as light as possible. And I'm probably going to take that off and put the regular one back on there, which is, again, a light free float rail. So that's about it though for what's going on with me. I'm still running the Rattler. Haven't really got much changed on anything except for the fact of Still waiting on the Hawkster Charge to be released and shipped. It is currently May 23rd, and I'm still waiting on the Super Hawkster LRF to be released. I'm still waiting on the Super Yoder LRF to be released, which they talked about those last year. Once SHOT Show came, they talked about them again. They were supposed to come out in March or April. It's May. I mean, it's almost June. They're still not here. So got some people waiting on those. You know, really, I really like the Hogsters and the bearing stuff. I mean, it's definitely cool. The the functionality of the buttons is not, I mean, it's okay once you learn it, but it definitely, there was only three buttons on the Hogster and the Yoder, and you have to double press buttons sometimes. And sometimes I have to go back and look in the manual to remember which buttons to push. But, really good scopes, really good sensors in them, and just waiting on some stuff to be released there. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. What's going on here? What's going on with you right now? Like, are you hunting coyotes? Are you hunting hogs? We haven't really been coyote hunting except for last Thursday was kind of a little quick thing. Although that dude that I hunted with, we're trying to get him sighted in so we could go hit a farm that he has access to, which is always cool. I have a lot of friends that have access to properties that I get to hunt with them. So, I don't have all these properties myself, but at the same time, I do have my own properties that I take some of them people to. And then I also hunt with them sometimes on their own properties. So, but it's definitely, that dog that we killed on Thursday night was a female. She definitely was not pregnant. She definitely didn't really have like huge breasts or whatever. So we don't really think she was feeding pups anymore, but she was definitely a heavy dog. So that's kind of what's in my area. I mean, I know a couple months ago, there was one that I put down that she was definitely pregnant. So, but I mean, we just keep on going. I try to hunt once a week, sometimes twice if possible. I got some other people that I need to get sighted in. So that's pretty much what's going on here. So this podcast though is basically, my little thing that I'm working on here. I try to go through, some of the stories of what's going on as far as the little series and the topics. And then, basically this thing is sponsored by Perceptive Outdoor Gear, which is really perceptivegear.com. On that website, we sell night vision and thermal optics, which we used to sell a lot of Sightmark, but right now I've kind of slowed up on that a little bit, and waiting on some of the night vision, although AGM does have the Neath available and it is on there. And then also waiting on the Hogster Charge to come out. Really looking forward to that scope. But if you're looking for any kind of night vision or thermal, optics, be sure to check out that page. Also, one of our big sellers is a 10,000 milliamp hour battery pack, which basically runs a lot of people buy them for the Sightmark Wraiths, the 4Ks, the HDs, and also it'll definitely power the new Sightmark Wraith Thermal. A lot of people buy that battery pack for the Bearing Hogsters, Bearing Optics Hogsters, the Bearing Optic Yoder, also the AGM Rattlers. So that's another big seller on there. We do have some tripods on there as well, some game calls, although I need to update that because Icotech, that's basically the brand that I run and sell. And the old generation one, which did not have Bluetooth, they don't have those anymore. Basically all of their models are generation 2 now. Not all of them, but most of your higher up models are generation 2, and they're running Bluetooth. So you can actually run those up to 100 yards off of a phone or something like that and run sounds through them, which is pretty cool. So I sell Icotech products, and that's pretty much it. as far as that goes. So if you need anything, feel free to drop a comment here or check out the website. My email address is on there as well as the phone number at the top, perceptivegear.com. And that's going to wrap up this episode of the Night Hunting Podcast. Again, this is episode 14. And I guess we will see you on the next episode. Thanks for watching. Bye until the next time.